Welcome to Bards and Barrels, the podcast for Dungeons & Dragons players new and old. I'm Ross Druce, and I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts Brett Miller and Phil Boone. We'll be exploring the world of Dungeons & Dragons in each episode, sharing our experiences, offering tips and advice for those who play and run this classic game. So whether you're a new player just starting out or a seasoned veteran looking to get a new perspective on things, Bards and Barrels has something for everyone. So sit back, grab a drink, and join us as we roll for initiative and embark on an epic adventure. Hey, and there's the opening crack. It's time for another episode of Bards and Barrels. How we doing, fellas?
Hey-o.
Hey.
It is going to be a great night. It is a mailbag night, which I feel like all of our listeners love, right?
That's one of our favorites, I'm pretty sure.
It is. It's always like the most nerve-wracking episodes we do.
I was going to say, I remember the first one of these we did where Brett, we were like, how's everybody feeling? Brett's like, I'm not ready for this.
I know some of our listeners. I don't trust them.
Yep. Well, anyway, let's start off tonight. Before we hit the mailbag, there's something new that Meta dropped. Meta, as in Facebook, dropped this last week, and it's AI chats. And one of the things that one of these AI chats is the Dungeon Master. And Phil hasn't gotten in and done it, but Brett and I have. Brett, why don't you share a little bit about this experience?
It's interesting. So you go to this Facebook page, and it's Meet the Dungeon Master, but it's like not, I don't even know how to say this. It's not meet, it's MEETHE. So it's skipping a T.
Weird.
Meet the Dungeon Master with only one T in there. But you go to that page, and then you click message the page, and you can start chatting with this AI, and it walks you through a like kind of campaign. I would say, you mentioned this earlier, it's kind of like more like a choose your own adventure than a real D&D campaign, though.
Yeah, at least my experience has been like, it's like it starts you out and it asks you if you want to go on an adventure. And it's like, okay, what else am I going to say? So you say yes, and it's just like prompts you and it says, what do you do? And it like keeps asking you, what do you do next? What do you do next? Never really prompting you to roll anything, but it's still really cool. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, some of the times when I've gotten into like a battle or an encounter or something, it's like you click one choice and then you basically roll through that entire encounter based on that one choice. So it's not like extended out. It's boom, 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 boom. You're moving on.
Right. I have tried this on ChatGPT, which I found the experience to be very similar to what Meta has put out there with this AI chat function. The difference being, I think, OpenAI's language that they use, that the AI uses, is much better than what Meta has. So it's a lot more eloquent and feels more conversational in a lot of ways. So it feels natural when I'm talking to it versus Snoop Dogg in the corner giving me looks and this happens. What do you do next? It's like that just weirded me out a little bit.
Yeah, the best part is Snoop Dogg's just like animating up in the corner of your chat window as he's just like sitting there looking like he's had a good night.
Yeah. I also thought it was funny because there was a group of us, everybody, well, most of our listeners know who Matt and Isaac are because we play our normal D&D sessions with them. They both played. And I think all of us, Matt, Isaac, Brett, and I were all doing the exact same adventure at the same time. So it's like, we're like messages like, I got the Moonblade. So did I.
All hit the same server.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's probably something worth going and checking out if you just want something a little different from your normal D&D session. It's cool. I wouldn't say don't let it replace normal D&D by any means. It's not to that point, even close to that point. But if you're looking for something fun to do while you're sitting there on your phone, I would definitely recommend going and giving it a look. Wouldn't you, Brett?
Oh, yeah. It's like if you ever liked reading the Choose Your Own Adventure books, this is pretty cool.
Totally. Okay, let's jump into mailbag. First question this week comes from one of our biggest fans, actually. And so here's what Clint writes into us. He says, I'm looking to create a new character which won't use a weapon. I want this character to be something like a WWE wrestler mixed with a brawler similar to Zangief. I didn't play Street Fighter, is that right? Anybody know?
Sure.
Oh, God, Clint, please don't hate me for that. I'd like this character to have an over-the-top personality like Ric Flair or possibly Grog from Vox Machina. I have a few weird friends who think they know everything about D&D, and they're telling me to use multi-classing, but what would you recommend? The monk class sounds good for hand-to-hand combat, but is it okay to use a class that works for combat but wouldn't work from a personality perspective? A monk is supposed to be quiet instead of loud and brash character like I'd like this to be. What is your opinion on using a character in a class in which it's not traditionally used, and what classes would you use in this case? That is a loaded email with lots of questions. Thank you, Clint, for sending that in.
Yeah. So I think, man, yeah, there are a lot of pieces to that question. Okay, first and foremost, if you want to just be a monk and not play by standard monk rules, just check with whoever's running your game because, I mean, I feel like I'm not always our DM, but I have done it a lot. But that's something that I would allow for sure. But if you're sitting at a table where, they're a little more traditional in what the character archetypes are, if I was leaning into multi-classing, would maybe think a monk bard kind of a play that introduces a little bit of magic potentially to more magic, different types at that point. But I don't know. What do you think, Brett?
Clint has caught me about this one and has asked in person on this one. So he already knows a little bit of my answer, but I was pushing him to the monk and the barbarian as a combo and like pick up just enough of the barbarian to be able to get rage so that you get some of those extra rage benefits, but then have all the monk fisticuffs.
I still feel like you could bring the personality out that way too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think that's the interesting thing. So we probably should talk a little bit about multi-classing since we're in this ballpark here. And it's not like you can like straight up go in, like you have to build a character. And then once you get to a certain point, you can multi-class. It's not like you can do this right off the bat anyway. So you're going to have to choose something that you're going to play with to start. And then once your scores and the player's handbook actually lists out like what specific score you need to be able to multi-class in another class. So you do have to work at it a little bit. So it's like, what do you want? What's the main thing you want to be?
If you rolled really well, if you YOLO'd or whatever, you put your 2 scores kind of in the areas you wanted to be, you could get there more quickly. It's still going to take you at least 2 levels because when you take a level, you take 1 level in a class. So once you decide to multi-class, let's say that you start out as a monk and you're going to go barb. You start out as a level 1 monk. Once you get enough XP or you hit that milestone and you're getting ready to level up to level 2, that's when you have to make the decision of, okay, am I going to take level 2 in monk or am I now going to take level 1 in barbarian? You're still a level 2 character because the 2 add up to what your total level is, but you don't receive any of the features of the monk second level. At that point, you would get oh my gosh, at that point you would get what the barbarian has at that level.
Right. And so at that point, just realize if you are going to multi-class a character, you're never going to hit level 20 if you're multi-classing a character because you're going to at least take 1 level in something. So the highest you can ever get is level 19 in your main
in that class. Yeah. Your character
can get to 11, 20. Yes.
And most of the times, anytime I've ever seen somebody do multi-classing, you only pick up maybe 3 levels in your secondary class. Right. Like you're not going 1 for 1.
Right.
All the way up.
Totally.
I would say 3, max probably 5. Like you've hit most of your major things by that point, right?
Yeah. You're multi-classing because you want probably one of the early features like barbarian. You want that rage, which is going to come fairly quickly in barbarian levels. Okay, so back to Clint's question then. What do we think? We can just go around the table too. What do we think is like the most optimal 2 classes for him to take? I would agree with you, Brad, that I would do barbarian, and if he wants monk features in there, to do monk. That's going to come down to what he wants over the top personality. I do agree with him that if you're sticking to your guns here, a monk probably isn't the main. If you main with a barbarian and then add monk to it, I think that would fit the bill. That's fine.
Could you do something like a paladin? Because you could get all of your strength features. I mean, you're wasting most of your ability to use weapons, even though you could as a paladin. But you also get the high charisma as key features in a paladin as well. And that could lean into your social, like being an over-the-top social creature as well.
It's a good point. I think to what he wants to do, I don't know if Paladin work because he doesn't want to use weapons at all
Yeah. So Barbarian's still probably better with the.
because he'd be proficient with his hands, right?
Yeah.
So it's like right off anything he picks up, he's going to be proficient with, which helps right off the bat.
Yeah, well, and I also think so. Paladin is bound to an oath of some sort too, and I'm not necessarily sure that would fit the personality
Yeah.
of the type of character he's creating.
Probably not.
Spoiler alert for a question later tonight that we'll kind of get into that with, by the way.
Oh no, now I'm nervous.
But I don't think you have to be a boring monk or a boring barbarian. Like you can be a WWE fighter. Like they've got
Yeah.
lots of charisma, and just instead of using charisma as your dump stat, you could use it as a feature to lean into.
I mean, he even uses Grog as an example. I'm not sure. I guess I don't know if Grog is high on charisma. He's definitely not high on intelligence. But
No, you're still probably going to be dumping intelligence and wisdom.
oh yeah, especially if you're maining barbarian. Oh yeah, for sure.
I think you could get away with just a straight barbarian, truthfully, unless you're picking up monk for the hand-to-hand combat part of it.
Mhm.
Other than that, I don't necessarily see the need.
No, you could go either way as your main
Mhm.
easily, or just straight on either one.
And so maybe we've hit this already. So what do we think about his last question, where he's talking about your opinion on using a character in a class which is not traditionally used in? To me, he's talking about like that overbearing monk now. And I think Phil, you mentioned is like you'd be okay with that at your table. I think I would be okay. To me, it's like if that's what you want to build, you're just trying to get the characteristics of another class. Go for it. I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah, I definitely would be. The way that part kind of sounds to me is, so in one of the other campaigns that we're playing in right now, one of Ross's characters is a rogue, but most of the time you wouldn't know that. And I think that's just who you are as a player.
Yep.
But you don't lean into those features
Nope.
heavily, but they're there when you need them, and it's
Yes.
a big part of your backstory. Like it totally makes sense. But same thing. Like I think you're not the stereotypical rogue, and
Sure.
I think that it plays really well still.
And it keeps your character fresh too.
Yeah.
It's not the same
Sure.
rogue, same barbarian it's not the dumb barbarian that run up and smash.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be fun to play a super charismatic barbarian. That would
Totally.
be super refreshing at a table.
That'd be very interesting.
Yes.
Now that I think about that. Okay. Any last thoughts for Clint before we move on? No? Okay. Well, Clint, I hope this was a satisfying answer. If it's not, I'm sure you will let us know. But thank you for sending that in.
How about you just be a druid that wild shapes into a gorilla?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, yeah. Sure, why not? Okay, next question. I'm about to run the Dragon of Icespire Peak and feel my party's races and classes they have chosen would be too overpowered for the story. Do I make the campaign harder, or do I run it as is?
Make it harder.
Yeah, I think we ran into this just the other night. So we are currently running the Light of Xeraxes.
Yep.
And we're talking about this because there is I'm not going to spoil the session, the campaign, but there's a class that is heavily featured in the storyline. Thankfully, none of us picked that class to be for one of our characters, but it would have drastically changed the storyline and the features and what you could do just by having picked that class for this campaign.
So to Brett's point, I do think that there are some like hard lines, right? If one of their choices is totally going to upset the campaign's storyline or something like that, then I think maybe you're going to have to intercede somehow, like either change part of the story or like in this case, maybe they change the race or something like that. Sure. Of, this other group. But if it's really, you're just kind of worried that they're overpowered, I would probably just try to make your combat challenges more difficult, make the DCs higher on your social interactions, possibly.
I also wonder a little bit with this is like, did you have a session 0? Did you talk through this? Like, did you all get together and make your characters? Because like these are also issues that you can take care of early.
Yeah.
So it's like if you feel something's off or like a race, like tell them in session 0, don't get into the story and then go, oh, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, this is a group storytelling campaign. Like you are all in this together. So if you are a little transparent with your party and say, hey, I like what you guys are doing, but I think we're going to have some problems here. Maybe somebody in that party is willing to change it up or tweak their character slightly so it's not quite as overpowered.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Next question. Does it break the mechanics if I let my party roll HP with advantage? Their concern is not getting enough back on short rests. What are your thoughts on this?
Interesting.
Rest. Getting HP back through rest is just challenging, kind of in its own. Because there's so many different ways that people fall on that. Like, I like to have a lot of HP. So I am a frequent rester, or I like to take rest because I like to be at full health. That's not really how the game was designed.
Correct.
And I think we've hit on this before, but that's not how the game was made. It's supposed to be challenging.
I think by giving them advantage, you're diluting the benefit of certain classes, the healing classes, and potions. Or any of the other ways to get health back. Like, you can get health other than a short rest. And by leaning too much into giving them health that way, you're kind of pigeonholing how they're going to play it.
Yeah, I don't mind the rolling the HP with advantage doesn't bother me as much as you're diluting the rest of that. I agree with that 100% because it's like if this is going on, I would say make sure you're utilizing your healers and equipment in your inventory first. And then if that's not doing the trick, then we can talk about other ways to get you more health points. If people are going down a lot or something, or healers just aren't able to do what they need to do, then we can talk about that. But I think you're absolutely right. Up front, probably not something you want to do.
I mean, hell, add a health shop along the side of the road if you really need to.
Right.
Like if they are desperate to get some other options to get healing because they're only relying on their short rest, find a different solution so that they can heal up.
Well, yeah, like in the Descent campaign, Ross's character carried around an amulet that characters could look at and restore some HP. So completely outside of resting, completely outside of healing potions. It was once. I can only use it once, I think, per long rest, short rest.
Short rest. Yeah.
All right, that was generous of me, but
Thank you,
but
Phil.
things like that can interject a little bit of healing without needing to give away something extra, and it's still limited use.
Right.
So you're not always running up against, oh well, I'm rolling 8s every time I re-roll my HP. So
right. So I think the common consensus then among us is get creative first.
Yeah.
Make sure you're utilizing everything that you can, and then go to house rules.
If somebody's not falling down to death saves occasionally, you're kind of limiting the stress factor of combat. Like you want a little bit of put them on the edge of the seat. Are they going to make it out of this?
Right.
Where's the stomach acid going to eat them?
Yes.
I mean, it's not a good story unless there's some drama occasionally, right? So it's like you need something in there.
Or you occasionally kill a character.
Yeah, sure, why not? It happens. Lots of parties have that problem. We haven't yet, thankfully. Knock on wood. Okay, next question. How do you deal with players that go all out in every fight? They use all of their abilities, their spells, everything, and then they want a rest to refresh. How timely is this?
Ross.
No, stop. That is not me.
No, this was me last night.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying I do this. I do not do this. They have no concept of rationing abilities, holding back. And when I say that sleeping isn't an option, they wait around till they can, slowing the game down and making immersion really hard. I see where you're going with that now.
So I hear you. I think it's just a different style of play. Like, I've talked to a friend of mine who, in video games, never uses any of the consumable items because he might need them someday. And he gets to, like, the end of the video game and has all this stuff, and it's completely worthless because he's so overpowered at that point.
That's me. That is so me.
I wasn't referring to you.
I know you weren't. That's me. Playing Tears of the Kingdom, I'm like afraid to use a weapon because it might break. That's me.
Wow, living in fear, man. Jeez,
Never know when you're gonna need it. Hold on to it.
I think when it comes to this, also, if it's a new party, their instinct is going to be use everything I have in a fight, because that's just how they don't know any different yet. I think if we were to sit down with a new party and an older party that's been playing for 10 years, I think you would find two very different styles. I think the new party would do exactly this. They would use everything and then want to rest, whereas the older party, because they know the game better, is probably going to sit there and conserve.
And there's still things you can do. I mean, any magic class is going to have some cantrips that they probably could do something with, or heal, or shoot a crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why you have all those simple weapons, and you kind of keep a hold of those. Right. Not everything is just consumable or burnable.
Yeah, you're not going to be hitting for huge damage, but you can still take a shot.
Yeah,
totally. You can do something.
Yeah,
right. Okay, next question. This one's a little bit more fun, I promise. Let's say a hag polymorphs an elf druid who is wild-shaped as a bear.
Holy cow.
She turns the druid into a sheep, and once the sheep drops to 0 HP, do they revert back to the elf, or do they revert back to the bear?
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Start over. What?
Okay, so I'll simplify this a little bit. So you have a druid who is wild-shaped as a bear.
Okay.
The hag polymorphs the druid, who is a bear right now, into a sheep. The sheep drops to 0 hit points. What does it turn back into? Does it go back to bear, or does it go back to elf?
I mean, my gut wants to say bear, but I feel like I should review the polymorph spell and see what the wording is.
I think you are 100% correct, because I think what the polymorph spell does is it reverts back to the form it was in when the spell took effect. So it's like if you were a bear, once you hit 0, you go back to being a bear.
Well, I just started reading it, and in the first paragraph it says the spell has no effect on a shape changer.
Oh, well, that's an interesting for this question.
It seems
so then I got a little stuck. But like that hag cheated though. She broke the rules.
Shit. My gut reaction was, if it polymorphs you and you're already changed, you just go back to where you were. Like you if you had lost hit points, you just revert back to that moment
where you were.
Yeah, that moment in time.
That sounds fair to me.
But if the polymorph spell doesn't work on a shape changer,
I think that is the biggest point here, and it's
true.
Dead there. It's kind of like you can't put a bag of holding in a bag of holding.
Correct. Yeah, I think you're right.
Like, they've got to have some limitations there, and that because you could have a second hag come in and change them again, and then it's like how many layers down.
Correct.
Inception level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, though.
No.
Would you be
dead?
Dead. No. Would you be able to layer the polymorph spells though? Because if you're not a shape changer, but I changed you, you're still not a shape changer. So can you be polymorphed into multiple things? Can a polymorph be put on a polymorph
from a different person?
Yeah. I'm using your example, like two hags. So if I change Phil into a sheep, then you change Phil into a rat. Is he a rat then goes back to a sheep?
Yes, because now I'm just picturing two hags like having a pissing contest. Like, no, it's a bird. No, it's a toad.
It's the sword and the stone, except instead of changing them into themselves, they're like just sitting there casting it on one person.
Exactly.
I have an idea. Let us know in the comments what you think. Because we don't know. You let us know.
Okay. Technical question. Is one round of combat 6 seconds? In my last session, the cleric casted spiritual weapon, and its duration is 1 minute. We had 7 participants in combat, so if each person is 6 seconds, wouldn't it only be good for one attack?
No, 1 round of combat is 6 seconds, so that would be 10 rounds. 1 minute would be 10 rounds of combat. Everyone gets a turn in a round.
Right. I can see where that's confusing, though.
It is.
Because if you've never done that before, it's like, is it that person's round, or is it the round as a whole? Or
I think a good way to understand this is to watch Vox Machina on Amazon Prime and see how fast the combat goes that they actually go through, and think, okay, that fight that just probably took 15 rounds
Right.
of a battle, but it's like boom, 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 boom. Done.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, the best way to like just understand it in general is that each round is instantaneously happening for everybody at the same time. You just don't play it that way.
Yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't necessarily happen in turn order like you're used to, right? A lot of these things
Correct.
are happening at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a good question, though.
Okay, fellas, next question. One of my players mentioned he was thinking about dipping his paladin into some Hexblade Warlock levels. I told him that was fine, as long as he was okay with Lathander disowning him and losing his class benefits as a paladin. This dissuaded him from doing this, but now I wonder if I should have just let him do it. I'm okay with multi-classing if it makes sense. What are your thoughts?
I'd say your take was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, but I see it because technically you're entering like a pact with some other being when you become a warlock.
I would add to this by saying they've already solved this problem, because this is probably where an Oathbreaker paladin fits in. Because in order to do this, you took a pact with something, you broke the oath that you were in, and now you're an Oathbreaker paladin with warlock levels. I think that's actually probably the route they would want you to take.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's...
And would be really freaking cool, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The storylines you have potentially queuing up here are like, woo. But I could see going the other way and keeping both. I would say it's messy at that point, and maybe they have internal struggles, or like maybe even sometimes one of the gods doesn't answer their call because of that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I would be interested too to know like specifically what the character maybe wanted from that Hexblade Warlock. Like that seems specific. Is there a way to maybe get them what they wanted without having to go multi-classing?
Right. And I think that's where I don't know if there's any feats that allow you to take warlock levels necessarily. I think there are. But some of them do allow you to take spells from other classes without actually having to multi-class in that, which would allow you a way to weasel around that a little bit in some ways. Okay, last question for the night. We had a warlock cast Burning Hands during their turn. Then he was attacked and used Hellish Rebuke as a reaction during the same round. I had a few players at the table comment that he couldn't do that because he had already cast a spell. Help, how do I handle this?
Okay, hold on. Explain that one more time to me.
Okay, so warlock cast Burning Hands on their turn. And then they were attacked, used their reaction to cast Hellish Rebuke. And then he had some reaction from some players saying he couldn't cast 2 spells in a round.
But I believe that Hellish Rebuke specifically is a reaction, is its type.
Yep.
So that would have been acceptable according to like hard rules, right? So on his turn, he took an action to cast a spell. You cannot cast 2 like actions on your turn, but you can use a reaction. So as long as he didn't already use his reaction for an opportunity attack or something like that, yes, he's well within his rights.
Yep, you get 1 reaction per round. Excuse me.
Yes.
Okay, just kidding. We're going to do one more question. How much time should it take for a character to go from level 4 to level 17? Long story, but here's the short version. 2 players got cursed, and the only way to fix them is the wish spell. They have a year to lift the curse before they turn into dragons. Is it feasible for my level 4 wizard to get to level 17 during that time frame?
Okay,
that's a loaded question.
There are a lot of layers to this one.
Oh, man.
We're going to need another episode for this question. Time in D&D, first of all, does not necessarily equate to real world time. So you could have 3 years of sessions and have it fit in 1 year of playtime.
That's true.
Okay, I should clarify. I'm pretty sure he's talking in-game time. Can you go from levels 4 to 17 in a year? Not in like you playing actual game time.
Sure. I mean, there is no rule on when you have to level up. It maybe if you're doing XP based, you need to not sit on your butt every day. You need to get out there and kill some stuff to get some XP, but there's a way to do it.
From what I've seen in forums and things, among older D&D players, it's like every 8 to 10 sessions you level up is what I've seen. Seems to be the common thing. So if you're doing XP based, the book lays out when you get to those levels. So like if you're doing homebrew, you get this much XP, you're going to advance to this level. If you're doing it through a published campaign, it specifically tells you when. I think that's probably the hardest path to take for this, because it's going to tell you specifically when you level up. And if you're playing a campaign that only gets you to level 15, well, that's a problem. So XP is an option. And then if you're going by the rule of thumb that people are using, if it's every 8 to 10 sessions, I don't know if you can, depending on how often you're playing, maybe.
Another thing I've seen done is you level up your party based on what level they're at on average, and then that many sessions until they get to the next level. So if you're level 3, you play 3 sessions at level 3, and then you go to level 4. 4 sessions at level 4 and level 5.
So the higher level you get, you're going to slow down, though.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
But by doing that, you also kind of are obvious to your party if they're paying attention on when they're going to level up. So maybe fudge that here or there.
What level? Do you guys remember what level you ended up at? Where we're with Descent right now?
I can
13, I think it is.
13.
I was thinking it was 13. So our Descent into Avernus characters ended up at level 13. And thinking back to that campaign, I don't remember if the book said anything, but I would say that whole encounter, well, not encounter, whole campaign, took place within the matter of 3 months, maybe, honestly. And you went from, I don't know, you gained
Level
at least
5?
10 levels probably while you were in Avernus, I would think, or close to.
Yeah, you can also send people to other planes that have time that work differently too.
Time dilation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're missing a very easy answer here. You're the DM. Set it up however you want to set it up. If it makes sense in your story, do it. I think technically it's possible. Absolutely, if you have a way to make it happen in your story, just make it happen.
And you don't necessarily have to hold that one thing to get to level 17. Maybe they have to do this elaborate quest that takes them quote unquote 6 months of game time to earn the favor of a god who grants them a one-time use wish spell scroll.
That's what I was thinking too.
You can just get creative and do things too. I think there's plenty of options for them. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Bards and Barrels. You can listen to past episodes of the show anywhere podcasts can be found. Want to stay in the loop and not miss the latest from us? Be sure to head over and give us a like and follow on Facebook and Instagram at Bards and Barrels. We'll see you soon, folks.